All right, thank you, Lucas O. and Benjamin C. for your recurring donations. Very much appreciated as always. Thank you, everybody, for the liking, the sharing. Our numbers are growing, and donations and comments are always welcome. So keep it coming. I'm very interested. I see that most people are. Well, I get the most numbers when you guys are getting information from me about on the how-to side, and but a big part of what I do by way of how-to is based on your questions. So it's not that I haven't done a bunch of other things, and I'm going to get to two different things. Hopefully, one of them is a bit of a flower demonstration. The other one is a brown paper demonstration. You guys have both asked me about those things, so I'm going to be trying to get those done, me and Mr. Producer, in pretty short order. But keep the questions coming in to whatever extent you want to that relate to your endeavors, to work with our way of, making pictures. Let me also say at the beginning that I want to always remind people that what we're talking about here isn't art, and it isn't the world of painting. It's what I know about painting from my own practice. And my practice comes out of, well, a bit of a classical training plus an impressionist training. But the impressionist training has two parts to it. One of them is the Boston School, and so the better part of what I talk about, and if you watch all my videos, I'm really talking about the methods related to the Boston School, which is what I've mostly evolved mine from, as it works out. Again, I did it in the search for best practices. So what you're going to hear from me now, though, is slightly different area. So we'll just go from that. So there's two different questions here today, but they're significantly related. I don't know if you can see. I think a couple of them were put in bold. One of them by Janet. These first three will be by Janet, and the next one will be from Kid Newton. Kid Newton. I don't know if I've seen that name before. Fun name. That's your handle, I take it. So first question from video number 3. And these early videos, I didn't have images or anything like that, and I don't even think we had titles on them. So be patient with those first handful of videos. You're going to get a lot of background stuff. I think I'm more useful. You can find the stuff I'm talking about a lot more easily once Mr. Producer gave titles to things, and we limit our subject to a fairly, 1 or 2 items. This is largely about one thing, as you can see in the title. So from video number 3, Janet is asking, or says, music applies in color and values and light effects. And you all know that what she's talking about is that I'm talking about what we're doing as music. We're creating harmonies and things like that. And what I'm suggesting to you, the primary thing that our medium does is like what music does without words. The thing you got to be good at is that thing. So we're talking about music that way. So she says, music applies in color and values and light effects. It applies in shape and curves and straight lines. And of course, it's the interrelationships of those that make the music, right? So it's the set of notes, not just a single note. And it applies in terms of human hands in relation to each other. Now, this is all quotes from me. And when I say that, I mean, if you have a picture of somebody and there's 2 hands in the picture, the way they relate is a thing. And if there's 3 of them, then you have even more of something. But the hands are just as much a player in that musical sense. So if there are 4 or 5 people, the heads are talk to heads, shall we say, right? Just like the reds talk to reds. Hope that's not getting past you. So does the personality of the artist make for music too? Well, that's amusing, and I really like this. This is like the next generation of thinking. But the personality of the artist is a recognizing thing. Even the reason you became a painter is because you saw something that just excited you, right? So you don't make the music, you find it, you bring it, but you're a recognizer. You're what would you say? You're a reflector of it, right? So to that extent, I say I wouldn't have any problem with the personality of the artist makes the music too. I don't know how to say I play with my personality in 3 different ways to make a musical note. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm pretty sure you don't mean that. But yeah, absolutely, the personality. So Impressionism is described as nature seen through the prism of you could say a personality. Okay, so the word interpretation, so I'm looking at something and I'm trying, and I'm really excited, really, really pleased by what I'm seeing. And my job is actually to show you what it was in the same way as if you were telling a story, to make sure I get across to you what the gist of the story was. And, we got flies. It's a really warm day today. If I start really pouring off sweat, I'll blame it on my audience of one here. Hey, Mark, how are you? From the comments of, not the heat, it's 94 degrees out there today, I think. Is that right? Something like that, yeah. So from the comments of video number 4 is the second question. From the comments of video number 4 about imagining what the finished painting would look like, you reply, although I find it a mental thing held in the mind by feeling. Curious combination. Now this is a quote from me, that's what she's saying. Does this mean feeling refers to emotional sensation, mood, or consciousness, or all of these? So that one takes a little bit of unpacking. What I'm trying to do as an impressionist is to get, as I said a second ago, is the gist of that thing that made me want to even paint this. I've got to get my head around that. So what happens is that you simply see something of beauty and it touches you, right? You have an emotional response to it, but you got to get your head around it. Is probably the best way I can say it. So you have to get a grasp of it, and in that way, you're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to start watching your canvas as you hit notes, so to speak, to match what you're seeing in front of you. You're watching to see if it's progressing in the direction of your larger effect. Mr. Producer, can you do something about flies? I know you'll probably add more flies to the video, won't you? I better stop talking this way. Yeah, and when it lands on my nose, we'll all be having fun. I had a tick once and some other fun stuff. Bee, I think, 2 weeks ago. Okay. So although I find it a mental thing held in the mind by feeling, does this mean feeling refers to emotional sensation? It is emotional, essentially. I say you feel it somewhere here. So I don't know where you feel your emotions. I mean, people say things, but I said to my students in sort of a crass way, I said, in your thymus. If it doesn't hit you in the thymus, you probably shouldn't even be painting it if it doesn't impress you that way. There should be a reaction, as it were, an emotional reaction, yes, to it. And your job, in my view, your job is to attempt to get the audience to have the same reaction to what so when you tell the story, you want to see if the tear comes to their eye at the right point, right, so to speak. So, but the question of mood and all that stuff, you would say probably if you're looking at an image at night and its primary thing is mood, that's a thing. There's no question it is. But the question of beauty and all that stuff that we're going to be talking more about in a second, the question of beauty is more than mood. So I separate the two. And when I'm trying to paint, if it has a mood, I'm still going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to be focusing on mood and saying, is it projecting that mood yet as I change this note and get these relationships of notes right, and get this masked out right and get it in relation to this busy area down here. Is it doing it? Is it conveying the mood? If that's a dominant thing, so it could be that, yeah. But I still tend to think of them differently. Yeah. Or consciousness. I don't know what you mean by that, so I'm going to have to let that go. All this stuff is a product of self-awareness. You have to become aware. You have to stand before something in nature and wait a second, shall we say, until you become aware of what it is that impresses you. First of all, you better be impressing you. There are a lot of things that impress you, but they're not impressive pictorially. In other words, it's not going to be helpful to be impressed by them because it's not picture material. You're not being impressed by picture material. So beauty, visual beauty, the interplay of colors and doing things that are really magical, if you want to put it that way. Get yourself to the point where you can see those things, grasp those things. So in a sense, you can't make anything out of it until you've got to this point of consciousness. But that consciousness word, if you mean that, is where I say you have to get a concept of the thing fixed in your mind and eye. And I think that comes up in the next question, but that's Angian conversation. He's just talking about form. You got to get it, or the drawing, the figure you're drawing. Get a concept of the thing fixed in your mind and eye. Well, the thing could be the form. Get a concept of it fixed in your mind and eye. In our case, the visual impression, the impression of the whole, is fixed in your mind and eye. Okay? So consciousness, yeah, it's fixed in your mind and eye. Bring it to your consciousness so you can say, okay, I think I know what I'm going for. Okay? And then keep watching on the canvas to see if it's actually showing up yet as you begin to hit notes, true notes, this note to that note. And there's more to it, which will come up, I think, in a second. So then Janet goes on to say, can a painter make a good painting by slowly finding the beauty as they paint? Or should they always decide what the beauty is before applying any paint? Yeah, and I wouldn't be a purist that way. I'll tell you what, when I was first out there and even beginning to understand this, it was because I began uncovering stuff that I had no idea. I just thought, well, that'll do. It looks pretty okay. But I had no idea what the makeup of it, why it was beautiful. And that won't occur to you in the first few times out. So you're going to be uncovering, discovering, and all that. And you do continually, in the course of making an impressionist painting, you do continually uncover why it's impressing you. You'll see what the stuff is that's doing that, why that would cause that, you know. So it can be a sweet color movement, you know, from red into some gold, you know, through oranges, or it could be any number of other things. You begin to realize why this picture has beauty, or what the elements of it, you know, how they compose to construct that. I say conspire is a nice word to make that beauty. So I would say do it that way, but make it. You're going to, over time, you're going to realize that there's a great advantage in grasping the beauty of the thing as a whole. Especially since that's our mission, is to paint the grand ensemble of the visual impression of this little unit of nature, right? The sooner you grasp it, the better. I'm teaching a composition class with my present body of guys, and I can't make it too. I try to make it really clear how necessary it is for you to grasp the main line of the picture, to stand there in a landscape, and try to see if you can sort out what the plan is. Nature's, if it hangs together and feels like that would be a great painting, well, it's going to have unity. It's going to have coloristic unity. It's going to have valuistic unity. We talk about spotting and things like that. That's got its own unity. And it's going to have a linear, what we call a gestural or a spatial unity. But to get your head around that early and often is a pretty good thing. But it'll continue to come to you. And then, of course, you have to work it out on the canvas next to you, right? And that's, again, you can think you understand it, but it might dawn on you that it's actually something more and better. I sometimes talk about the Chloe in the Sky with Diamonds. I had an idea that the underlying structure of the design was an hourglass, and I realized it was way closer to being a DNA symbol. To get it to incorporate all the elements best, I had to have a slightly more complex twist. You know what I mean? But again, so you might want to review I might be confusing you. I'm talking about a symbol of an hourglass, and then I'm talking about the main line of a picture. But understand, if you can get those two things together now, the idea of line isn't so limited. It's really something bigger than gesture, something bigger than movement. It's something else, right? But it's just a unifying idea in your mind that you're going to keep there to help you order all the parts of the picture. And it's in an impressionist painting, it's already there, ordering the parts of the picture, and your job is to try to understand it, try to grasp it. Okay, so that's my best answer. I don't want to go through that twice. I'll be here all day. So then Kid Newton says, as you spoke, you touched upon abstraction and the greater whole of the painting. I really like that term abstraction, but these days, we're talking about abstract art, and it doesn't appeal to us sometimes as being beautiful, and so we wonder how that can be an example. But I think of abstraction in the same way you think of music with words. The words are the story, the narrative, whatever, with all that emotional baggage. But the music is the abstraction. This is underlying the travel of notes up and down, and with different timing between them. I shouldn't say up and down in our case, but yeah, I guess it is up and down on the higher and lower. Not being a musician, but in our case, the abstraction of the relationships of colors, that's just abstraction, what the colors are doing. And the way we talk about beauty and what the ultimate significance of beauty. And this is where some of you guys will say, oh, you're making these dogmatic statements. But I do honestly believe this is a question of what is the nature of our form. And you'll have to figure that out for yourself. And I do recommend you dig in on it. And disagree with me if it makes sense. But what the nature of our form is, it's the art of, shall we say, color. It was sometimes in the way back Renaissance era referred to as the art of color. Color is an abstraction. It's not the art of figure drawing. It's not the art of storytelling. These are all different things from what it is. Do you see what I'm saying? So once you accept that, now you're in the world of abstraction. So I'll just go on beyond that. So as you spoke, you touched upon abstraction and the greater whole of the painting. Now that just means how it all works together into a grand symphony. And I do recommend you look at Degas, and especially in his later work. Assuming you get the measuring correct, how does one interpret what they see and create an abstraction out of it? In other words, just copying a photo or real life isn't art until you create the beauty of the abstraction. Well, yeah, I could get into that whole thing about, the necessity of the painter's involvement with nature, how much more powerful your work ought to be than if you're working from photographs. I don't really want to do that in this video, but his point is, assuming you get the measuring correct, how does one interpret what they see and create an abstraction out of it? So getting the measuring correct is what we sort of do as young students. When you wake up a little bit, you realize that there's a better way to get the measuring correct, shall we say? And you know what it is? I've said it before, it's beauty. So once you see how this red plays to that red plays to this red, all of a sudden you know exactly what to do, and you're painting the accuracy of it to produce that beauty. If it doesn't produce the beauty, it must be inaccurate. Okay, do you follow what I'm saying? And that's what I'm saying is the underlying best abstraction, if you want to put it that way. So you're not creating an abstraction out of it. You're actually making the truth from this abstraction called beauty, which is the relationship of things within the picture. Think about that, guys. And I think I'm going to leave you on that happy note. This is where I'd love to have Kid Newton in the room to say more or to ask more. And I am trying, as I said, I'll end with this one idea, and that is I'm trying more and more of these videos to further unpack the ideas that I've already expressed in other places. So just because you see this come up again doesn't mean it's not going to cover territory you've never heard or territory in a different way, in the, as it were, further unpacking mentality. In any case, it's getting too hot in here. I got to get out of here. Let me just thank Lucas O. and Benjamin C. again for those ongoing contributions. And everybody, just keep it coming in, would you? We can use all the help we can get. Mr. Producer is right now. I guess he's saying he's holding his own in terms of getting paid, and he's not getting paid a fortune. He's getting paid sort of. I think it's an hourly thing. So. So keep it coming if you would, and to whatever extent we're of use and benefit to you. We appreciate that response. Okay, and so thank you for sharing, liking, and subscribing. The subscriptions are nicely up, and who knows what the next one is. I don't know when our next live stream will be. We'll be talking to Mr. Producer about that. And as I said, we're talking about 2 other videos in which we're trying to get some demonstration material for you. So I hope that happens sooner than later. All right, okay. I'm out of here before I die. Have a good week.